2024 school board meeting to order. Regarding agenda item 1, public access to meetings. This meeting is open for public attendance. You may also watch the meeting remotely via live stream. We have agenda item 2, meeting opening and roll call. Carlin, can you please call roll and verification of quorum?
Ms. Erler. Here. Mr. Kowalski.
Here.
Mr. Lepak.
Here.
Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Portson. Here. Mr. Robbie.
Here.
Mr. Shader.
Here.
Mr. Summers.
Here.
Ms. Bushman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we can please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will move into agenda item 4, the Mandana Bliss Award. The Mandana Bliss Award is a symbol of our deep appreciation for the unwavering commitment and the outstanding efforts demonstrated by our staff members for educational excellence in the Stevens Point Area Public School District. It is named in honor of Mandana Hale Bliss, Stevens Point's first school teacher and trailblazer, whose exceptional service and dedication continue to inspire us all. This award lends us the opportunity to shine a light on remarkable contributions made to this district by our staff and recognize their exemplary service. So at this time, I will hand it off to Corey.
Thank you, President Bushman. I would like to have Molly Williams, 4th grade teacher at Madison, come forward, and 6th grade student Sam Anderson, who's going to say a few words about this month's winner, Molly Williams.
Hello, today I'm recognizing Molly Williams. Miss Williams is an amazing teacher. When I was in 4th grade, I was a very sensitive kid. I had speech problems and she helped me realize that it was okay. She always made learning fun by doing a Harry Potter unit. When we would answer questions, we would get points for our houses. She sorted it by us taking a test on our personalities. It always made learning fun and made me want to go to school. I had a lot of problems with friendships and knowing who I was. When I had Miss Williams, she always helped me realize that I was a good person and that I should never have someone judge me just by how I look. Miss Williams was an amazing teacher, and I'm so glad that she had won the Mandana Bliss Award.
Thank you.
I just say, thank you so much. I'm very lucky and honored to be receiving this award today, especially from a student as wonderful as Sam. And I'm truly only as great as the people I work with. So a big thank you to everybody I work with. And this is one that will stick with me for a long time. So thank you so much, Sam.
One quick thing, if I can mention, Sam and I had a little miscommunication, and neither one of us brought her essay, so she came up with that in 2 minutes beforehand and did it. Talk about an amazing young lady.
Are all those flowers for her? I don't know.
And Carl's a new grandpa. Did you know that?
Congratulations, Coach. Oh yeah, thanks for doing such a great job.
Congrats, Grandpa.
Yeah, great job. Thanks for doing this. One, Carl.
Was that a teaching adventure that you were like a new technique?
Great job. Say, Carl.
Nicely done. Thank you for
With
sharing.
the flowers back there. Can they come up and present them to her?
That would be cool to have a picture.
Ladies, tell her.
Oh, yeah, Sarah can do that.
These are
Oh, that's okay.
That's okay. You're making the rounds, shaking everyone's hand.
Who are they, Carl? Tell us.
Who's all there?
Yeah, bring them up.
You have people here to give you thanks.
Get a picture.
Come on, don't be shy.
Come on down, the price is right.
Now you can tell us who they are.
So you got Ellen Hodney is a
These
first
are the
grade teacher at
bridesmaids.
Madison. Anna Hynotsky is a special education EA.
Okay.
And
I'm not a teacher.
not, I'm saying, not in our building.
All right, let's.
Listen off the street.
Okay,
Nicole
but she's got
Bauman.
flowers.
Fives. So all
So nice.
Nicole's our secretary, and Becca's one of our special education teachers.
I love the support.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful. I'm like, Marley, hey.
Look at that. Your picture.
That was cool to see. Yeah. That's sweet. Good call.
Sam, that was an incredible impromptu speech. Good job. Nicely done. Okay, we will move on to agenda item 5, public comments. It doesn't look like we had any email comments or anybody sign up for public comments. So then we will move on to agenda item 6, presentations. We have our Student Senate Representative Report with Matt Frank. Hi, Matt.
Good evening, board members. It is absurd how fast this year has come and gone. With only 8 days remaining for our seniors and 15 days remaining for our juniors and sophomores, SPASH begins its wrap-up season. Filled with award banquets and end-of-the-year ceremonies, this past month has been filled with events around SPASH leading up to the graduation ceremony being conducted on May 24th. To work through this catalog of events in chronological order, we must start with the week leading up to prom. This week is meant to bring out school spirit and create energy leading up to the dance. Dress-up days this year included Tropical Colors Day, Airport Attire, Celebrity Day, Rhyme Without Reason, which, if you're unaware with this TikTok trend, it's where you and your partner dress up as things that rhyme together but have nothing like related or to do with each other. So me and my friend did Tuxedo and Politos. And Friday was Tropical Day. The week went smoothly and flew by. Prom was then held at the Holiday Inn on May 4th from 8 to 11 p.m. With help from volunteers in NHS and Prom Court, the setup and takedown of the dance went very smoothly. I think my favorite aspect to prom was having a King Cone ice cream trailer outside of the dance floor for anyone in attendance to use. It was an amazing experience for everyone involved, and I look forward to next year's prom. Following, last week Monday was Academic Awards Night at SPASH. This ceremony was held to credit students' outstanding achievement in the classroom. I always view Academic Awards Night as a very special and beautiful ceremony, as you see the freshmen getting their first academic letters to the seniors, who have received 4 letters in a row, getting to hold their golden cups on stage. It is a very amazing sight to see the progression of these beautiful minds and accomplishing high GPAs for 4 consecutive years. The following day after the academic awards ceremony, an orchestra concert was held in the SPASH auditorium from 7:30 to 8:30. This concert, like many others around this time, had a theme set around saying goodbye to the graduating senior class and thanking them for their contributions to the orchestra program. Catching up to the present, in around 30 minutes, SPASH will be holding its athletic awards night for students who have found athletic success outside of the classroom. SPASH has many incredible athletes who dominate in their sports both on the state and even national levels. These athletes contribute to the well-roundedness of SPASH, and their dedication and hard work has prevailed throughout the school year. Wrapping up the year, our choir and band will be performing on back-to-back nights next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Our choir program concludes their extremely successful year on Tuesday night, saying goodbye to their seniors, 4 of them being all-state. And on Wednesday, Mr. Schmidt says his final goodbye to the graduating class and thanks them for their contributions to the betterment of the music program at SPASH. Friday, May 24th, is the day that seems to be coming faster than ever, graduation day. I don't think I need to contextualize the significance of this day to anyone, although this day has been put together through our wonderful staff and faculty at SPASH, to give credit to our students' consistent hard work and dedication to academic excellence. Following the ceremony, SPASH will be holding its annual project graduation. Project Grad is brought together by many volunteers both within SPASH and in the community. This event is a lockdown at SPASH which includes blackjack tables, a hypnotist, and other activities to celebrate the graduation. Finally, my school year ends on June 4th, which is only 15 days away. It feels surreal how fast my junior year is wrapping up. Over the past year, I've been so thankful to come to these meetings and be among the leaders of our school district. This position has helped me grow as both a leader and a speaker, and I thank you all for your kindness and generosity throughout the school year. I hope this is not the last time we cross paths, and I look forward to working with you all again soon. Thank you for your impact on my education, my school, and my community. I hope this report was informative and helpful, and have a great rest of your night.
It has been so nice to have you at our meetings all year, and you've always been so informative and robust in your presentation, so thank you.
Thank you. I've always appreciated these.
Nice job. Best of luck. Okay, moving on to agenda item B, communication report with Sarah O'Donnell.
Hello. Up on the screen, you can see a photo from Academic Awards Night that Mr. Frank referenced, which is my favorite picture to take all year when we have those seniors hold those cups up really high. That is not an easy feat. They need to maintain a 3.8 or higher GPA from all 4 years to earn that cup. So, and then a super fun tradition, they get to go take it to Belts, who will fill it up for free for them as a congratulations. So just a fun tradition there. Looking back at April, our focus was really wrapping up that referendum information campaign. So work that I did included that editorial production there at the end, social media posts there at the end. I mean, really, this was only a few days, and then that wrap-up work afterwards and media afterwards. We'll continue to focus on how and where those dollars are being spent or infused back into the budget for communication transparency as we continue moving forward, but nothing at the magnitude that we were previously. Project work included preparation for Teacher Appreciation Week. You can see there on I guess my left, your right, depending on where you're seated. We had folks submit thank yous in both video form and photo form. We had an increase in those submissions this year, which was just really cool to see people take the time to send those in and just say just amazing things about their teachers and other staff members across the district. And then we also did the e-cards again, which were a big hit last year. We were a little bit lower. We had just under like 290 submitted this year, and I think we were right over 300 last year, so a little drop, but not much. So we'll probably continue to do that again. So we really just hope all our staff felt seen and heard and valued, because they are and they really do so much. Keeping an eye on other just project work. Our Senior Spotlight campaign kicked off in April, Kindergarten Wisdom for Seniors, and then our Cubs Club is in very early process, trying to look at some early registration programs we might have to be able to connect with families before they enroll in the district. Enrollment campaigns we currently have running include the 4K enrollment campaign and the PODS enrollment campaign. Both of those numbers are just a little bit lower than we would like to see, so we'll continue to put some energy and effort there to increase those enrollment numbers, and then providing communication support across the district is needed. Taking a peek at that website, performance is exactly where we would expect it to be. We'll see a jump in both April and May, just given the number of events that are happening, activities that are happening. People are just visiting those sites a lot more to get that information. So nothing surprising there. Looking at social media performance, for the month of April, we saw a 43% increase in impressions over the previous month, the 55% increase in engagement per impression. Instagram also saw a jump of 30% increase in impressions. Again, this is very natural ebb and flow. There's just so much more going on, a lot more things to share, to have folks engage with and to comment on. My favorite was our highest one for April with 32,000 impressions was getting to show Janelle McCarville just some respect for Caitlin Clark was the second from that division to be a number one WNBA draft pick. I'll spit it out at some point. So anyway, that was fun to get to tie that back to, of course, our alum and girls basketball coach. E-newsletter performance continues to look very consistent, about 1,500 views on the internal with a click-through rate of 28%, and just over 7,500 on external with a click-through rate of 8%. And then looking at media relations, that was very much still looking at board elections and referendum through April. So I expect that will shift a bit here now through May. Taking a peek at just where my time was spent, communication, educational services, school board, no surprises there. Highest concentration of deliverables were around community relations, employee engagement, survey development, delivering and reporting, media relations, and social media content. Taking a peek at May, just trying to get to as many things as I possibly can. This is that time of year where I'd really, really like to clone myself and just send myself everywhere. I'm lucky to have other folks who'll take a lot of really great pictures and video for us, and I'll make sure to cover the big ones. So really just celebrating all the hard work that has been happening this year and previous years, and really sharing that story with the community. And that will conclude my report.
Okay, any questions for Sarah?
I just wanted to note how much I loved the uniqueness of the kindergartners providing advice to the seniors.
Yes.
I'm so close to the video. It's like almost
yeah,
done. I'm really
I
excited
just
to
can't
share
wait
it.
to
Can't wait
see
to watch it. I agree.
That's so cute.
Yes.
I could do like a 2-minute just on the bloopers, right? Because they're just silly. They're just
That's so
silly.
fun.
So it was, yeah.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, we will move on to C, Superintendent's Report with Corey Hirschbrenner.
Sure. So I'd like to start with last week we celebrated our staff for Staff Appreciation Week, and I just want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of our staff members. They are absolutely amazing. The dedication, the commitment, the time that they put in to our students and our district is just incredible. So thank you very much to every single staff member. We're very fortunate to have you. And then I'm going to ask Jen to read the proclamation.
Sure, thank you. Proclamation, whereas teachers are dedicated professionals who inspire and educate our children, helping them to achieve their full potential. And whereas teachers play a critical role in shaping the future of our community and our nation. And whereas Teacher Appreciation Week provides an opportunity for us to recognize and honor the hard work and commitment of our teachers. Now therefore be it resolved that the Stevens Point Area Public School Board does hereby proclaim May 6th through 10th, 2024 as Teacher Appreciation Week in our school district, and urges all members of our community to join us in celebrating and recognizing the contributions of our teachers. Be it further resolved that the Stevens Point Area Public School Board does hereby express our deep appreciation to our teachers for their dedication, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to our students and for their invaluable contributions to the success of our schools.
So it's a busy time of the year. There's tons of things happening in our buildings. I'd like to highlight just a few that recognize our students and our staff. So as was mentioned earlier, Academic Awards Night took place. So we had lots of students being recognized for their high achievement. We've had athletes have their signing day. So some of our students will be leaving us to play in sports in college. So congratulations to those individuals. We attended the Youth Apprenticeship Banquet. It's always a pleasure to come to that banquet and see all of the businesses that allow our students to go in the community to work. And then actually how many of those businesses hire our students once they leave us. So thank you to everyone that has a Youth Apprentice this year, and if anyone's interested in doing that in the future, please reach out and we'll find you a student. Decision Day, so our seniors have a decision day at SPASH where they tell us what their life is going to be once they leave us. So it's just kind of neat to hear what they decide to do after high school. We had 3 students in special sports that attended the State Special Olympics and did quite well. We had students attending the Central Wisconsin Math League. There were over 700 students at that, and 2 of our students were recognized for being in the top 3 performers at that. We also have many concerts, local or vocal jazz fest, lots of activities, end of year activities happening right now. Our forensics team had 3 state qualifiers. Aloysius Franson was recognized as a WIAA State Scholar Athlete. McKinley has some exciting activities happening on Fridays. They've got STEM Fridays, so if you're interested in seeing any STEM activities, I would recommend heading on over to McKinley on a Friday. And then HOSA and FCCLA had students, lots of students that attended a state leadership conference. And lastly, in regards to activities, congratulations to Sarah O'Donnell. We found out today that she has won the Power of Social Media, a national award one of two school districts in the state to win that award. So congratulations to Sarah.
Congratulations, Sarah.
In addition, we had our volunteers in the wood shop at CFC and Pods. They are honored with a Governor's Service Award for Volunteer of the Year, so that's really an awesome recognition as well. Summer school registration ends May 19th. The Jean LaRose Elementary Track Meet, if you've never been, I would encourage you to attend that on May 21st and 22nd. I've got listed in your agenda there. I'm not going to read them all, but we have several graduation ceremonies coming up. If you are going to attend the SPASH ceremony, please fill out the survey that was sent. And if you need a robe, make sure you indicate that in the survey. And then lastly, our last day of school is June 4th. So that's going to be here before we know it, and that will be here before our next board meeting. So we're wrapping up the year. It's been a great year. I just, again, want to thank all the families for sharing their children with us and our staff for everything they do every single day.
Thanks, Corey. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Corey. Moving on to agenda item 7, consent agenda. This includes the minutes of the prior school board meeting from April 8th, 2024, the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and the employment recommendations. I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, second by Dennis. All in favor? Oh, sorry, roll call vote, please. Call roll due to the scheduled monthly bills. Carlin.
Ms. Erler.
Aye.
Mr. Robbie.
Yes.
Mr. Pope.
Yes.
Mr. Shader.
Aye.
Mr. Summers.
Aye.
Mr. Kowalski.
Aye.
Ms. Portson.
Yes.
Mr. Lepak.
Aye.
Ms. Bushman.
Yes.
And motion carries.
Thank you, Carlin. We'll move into agenda item 8, business services. We have business services and human resources report.
Yep, and we'll ask Dr. Owens to come up, and we did not have a business services and HR committee meeting last month, but we do have an agenda item that Tom is going to share.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? We're just taking a look at the easement request this evening. It runs across Main Street, not across it, but along Main Street on PJ's south side, and then runs along Michigan towards the north, etc. It'll just follow right along the edge of the property. Public Service needs to install some additional service there. It will benefit us and several of the folks in the public by improving the load capacity and reliability of electrical service distribution system in that immediate area, and also provide customer loads and alleviate the WPS's existing circuit load in the area. So it's a mutual benefit to everybody in the public. We have easements with WPS before at other places. Even at this site in the back parking lot, there's an easement that runs along the parking lot to give us service in the back too. So we just recommend approval. It's pretty typical.
Questions?
The only question, just, will they be working, coordinating with us in terms of timeline of it or time of it?
Sure.
Just,
They'll
because
be
that traffic can get really crazy and
Yeah,
PJs.
they work with that all the time, and they'll be doing during the rest of 24. They'll be doing the planning and whatnot into 25, and then in 2025 is the installation. So obviously they'll have to do that when the ground permits that, etc. But they'll work with us, and they'll work with the city and the police department. They're going to be connecting the police department and going right up. So they'll have to do that in terms of traffic and in terms of whatever we're doing as well, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Owens? Okay, then we are looking for a motion to approve the easement for the WPS easement at PJ Jacobs as presented.
So moved. Second.
Meg, second by G. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 10, educational services. We have our Ed Services Committee report with our chair,
And Barb chaired last meeting.
Barb, who chaired the last meeting. Okay.
Well, that was G. We had a couple of presentations and they're included tonight yet, so.
Thanks, Barb. The one additional item that is not coming forward to the board for action or information, Jenny McMahon, our interim student services director, was able to provide an update on the YRBS data. You don't see that here in the board packet, but it certainly is available for folks that might be viewing or anyone around the table that would want to go back and view that presentation. We did not bring that forward. It was an information-only item. The other two items that are on your in your packet tonight, first, this did not come through Ed Services Committee, but the first is approval of our 4K contracts for our community sites. This is standard operating procedure, typically in May each year. We did provide a 2% increase per student in the contract this year. That is the only change that's reflected. The actual contract is an attachment on the document, on the memo that was uploaded into Board Docs, and you'll see that that was the only change that we made. So it's an increase of a per student allocation from $19.63 to $20.02 per student.
I just had a question on that. How many of the kids that we have in 4K do we get then in kinder?
Our enrollment, it's interesting you asked that question because someone just asked that. Our enrollment rate is quite high. So we get probably about 90% or more of our students that participate in our 4K programming that enroll as kindergartners in one of our district sites. So our retention's quite high.
Quite high.
Jim?
What is the trend on that? Has that been consistently 90% or has that been going up or going down?
It's been pretty stable.
Okay.
It's stayed right around there. We do have some local competitors, where folks who have made decisions already to enroll their children at, say, a site like Pacelli, but I would say 90% has been pretty consistent for at least the last several years.
Other questions for Chris? Okay, then we are looking for a motion to approve revisions to the 4-year-old kindergarten program and the site agreement type 3 24-25 contract as presented.
So moved.
Oh, who was that? Oh, sorry, Alex, okay. Second, Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then we have the revised 24-25 calendar with Chris.
Sure, and the calendar is displayed up behind you on the board. We've had several conversations about the Act 20 legislation and the associated required professional development for all of our kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, multilingual teachers, as well as our special education teachers. So after about a year of planning and really exploring what options would provide the most minimal hardship for families, but would also provide adequate time for teachers to be able to complete the required professional learning, which is approximately 50 hours in year 1 and slightly lower, about 47 hours in year 2. We have proposed the addition of 6 additional professional learning days for all K-6. The required training impacts all K-3, as I referenced, multilingual teachers and special educators. We have already proactively provided volume 1 of training for our reading teachers, our building principals, and our academic interventionists. And all 4 through 6 teachers on those days will still be getting a version of letters training that will be led by building leadership. So they'll be doing some sort of a intermediate version of letters training so that they're still continuing to stay connected to the learning that's happening at those primary grades. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions if folks have them at this point.
So I guess just practically in terms of the community, what are the changes?
So the changes are the addition of those dates that you see listed in neon green. Those are the changes. So an additional professional development day will be added on October 24th, November 26th, January 17th, February 24th, April 22nd, and May 19th. So those are the actual changes. I do think it's important to share at this point as well. I have been in collaboration with both the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA to ensure that they've provided additional programming and staff and would have them available on these days for folks that may need to leverage that as a childcare option when students are out of the building on those 6 days.
And so will we be utilizing e-learning on those days, or will they be days off? And I guess how does that impact, again, the required hours?
Good question. Yep. So we are required by DPI to have approximately 1,050 hours at K6. And even with these not being counted as e-learning days, we still meet that requirement. So we have that degree of flexibility built into our current academic calendar. So these will not be e-learning days. I was very mindful of ensuring that I don't create another job for teachers as I ask them to do additional required training. So rather than having them complete a lesson plan or prepare materials for an e-learning day, they really would just be able to focus on the required learning. The model we've also created allows for teachers to engage in the independent online learning in the form of modules in the morning on those days, and then we'll bring those groups of teachers together in the afternoon for collaborative discussion about how to best apply the learning that occurred on those mornings when they do it independently back in their buildings. So I feel really good about the model that we've created. Several districts have made other decisions. In other words, we're going to purchase you the online access to the independent modules, and you'll just complete those during your prep each day. Or I believe Wisconsin Rapids has elected to have a late start, a 45-minute late start every Monday throughout the course of next year to address the required professional development. That does not provide for that collaboration time that I really feel is critical, and I really feel is aligned with best practice for professional development.
G?
With the hourly requirement, you said the addition of these PD days does not impinge on that.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
I guess, are we going to have a discussion sooner or later about the e-learning days and snow days? Is that set for next year?
They are included. We have
are.
3 e-learning days in second semester, similar to what we had in this year's academic calendar.
But can we put it on the agenda that we can discuss that again?
Sure.
And the
At an
effectiveness of it?
Mm-hmm.
Sometime that we can return to that and discuss how that's going.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Barb?
The secondary schools will continue.
Correct. 7-12 will remain in session, so this only impacts K6.
That's a good clarification,
Is that
Barb.
qualified on here?
Yes.
It just says
Yes.
neon green, no school. It doesn't qualify elementary.
So it says only over on the side, so like October 24th on the far left, it says K6 only.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we have it on the legend on the right. We could actually add that, Alex.
Or
Maybe
just
that's a
add
good
an
catch.
asterisk so we can,
Otherwise, it's going to be quick. Just be like, oh,
Or the neon green down here, we can say no
Right.
We could
school.
Correct.
K6
I like
only.
that. I
Yes.
like that. Yes,
Okay.
that's a good
We can add it
clarification.
in just so it matches. That's
so
a
it
good
matches.
catch.
That's a good, yes.
Yeah, good catch.
Is there any state funding to support this professional development since, and I guess that's my first question. And then my second question is, I know there's been some news related to some lawsuits that have been filed related to the act. And so I guess I'm not saying we shouldn't move forward, but can you just give us an update about both of those things?
Sure. So there's no additional funding connected to the professional development component. There is for the purchase of curricular resources, which we will leverage when we begin the vetting process in the fall. And at this point in time, it's up to potentially 50% reimbursement of your overall purchase for your district. The cost for this round of professional development, which includes volume 1 for about 155 staff, and then the 42 staff that we have already completing volume 1 will complete volume 2. It carries a cost of about $63,840, and that's just to purchase the materials and the online access to content. So there is no funding available for that. We'll have to leverage our professional development funds and our educational services budget to cover those costs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good information. Yep. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, then we are looking for a motion to approve the revised 24-25 calendar as presented.
so moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Chris. And we will move into agenda item 11, student services, social emotional learning curricular resources, and we have Jenny.
Yep, Jenny McMahon and some staff members are going to come up and share information about the social emotional learning curriculum.
Do you need me to project that, Carlin?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes?
Here we go. All right, good evening. Good to see all of you. Welcome to May. All right. Well, included in your board packet agenda is a variety of resources regarding universal social emotional learning and curricular resources, especially targeting guidance and counseling services through our department. So within our updated information for the board to consider tonight is information regarding our Wisconsin administrative rule that asks our school districts to have approved programs for the delivery of guidance and counseling services to our students enrolled in the district. Certainly we work hard to be a front runner in having best practices and high quality instruction for all of our students in all years of academic learning. Within our district and within the state, we aim to have a comprehensive school counseling program. It's effective, has a good model, and meets the requirements of our administrative rule. So over the last few years, however, our district has purchased just so few resources. Of course, money and budgets have always been slim in that area. So the delivery of universal guidance and counseling hasn't really had the devotion of some funds toward that in the last few years. Our current elementary student staff have materials that definitely need a refresh. They're probably on more of the outdated list and are really compiling lessons using a wide variety of resources. So this method really makes it hard to make sure for my office that those lessons and materials are always high quality or delivered with fidelity, or that they would be evidence-based, and that we'd have any way of delivering any kind of fidelity checks within the district as well. At the secondary level, our guidance and counseling staff do a great job of emphasizing that academic and career planning, or ACP, that you've heard about. We use Zello as our primary resource, as well as counseling guidance staff made slides that are administered throughout our advisory time. But certainly right now our resources really kind of end beyond or at that ACP level. So overall, I've just an assessment of our district resources and our department, seeing that we could really seek to increase that decreasing of variability amongst our guidance, our counseling, social emotional learning, and have a lot more similarities among our instruction so that all students have a real similar experience in our schools. Within our district, I'm sure you've heard many times about EMLSS, which is a long acronym for Equitable Multi-Level Systems of Support. And before that, you had learned about RTI, or Response to Intervention, which now is really just embedded within that kind of programming. So EMLSS is a target throughout our state that really makes sure that we're looking at having high quality instruction for all students, but then also having instructional resources for students who need more targeted support, or perhaps even individualized support, and that we do that based on data and making sure that students are responding in a good way to that instruction, and if not, that we're intensifying that. So within our framework, right now we have a common expectation for approximately 15 minutes a day of social emotional learning at the elementary level, and that at our secondary level, our students have that weekly advisory period. And next year, with all the changes, the nice changes in the schedules, that'll be an extended period each week. Within our Wisconsin social emotional competencies, we've been encouraged to make sure that we're looking at those competencies within our EMLSS framework, and that we're making sure that we're taking a look at what are those skills that students would learn in each grade. That we're providing opportunities for that practice, learning and modeling, and reinforcing those social emotional competencies throughout the day. In addition to our guidance and counseling program, that would be universal for all students to access. Like I said, we always want to plan ahead for students who might need more targeted or specific supports within our schools. Just like reading and math, there are students who rise through data, office referrals, parent referrals, teacher observations that they need more targeted instruction in that area of social, emotional, and behavioral learning. So again, we meet that through the EMLSS tiers, where typically tier 2 would be those small group instructional opportunities, and tier 3 would be a lot more specific to a student and their needs. Again, our district student staff are wonderful, but they've been provided really minimal resources for implementation of small group and especially individualized instruction. So that's been hard for them to have a real go-to way to target social, emotional, behavioral skills. We've been using some materials from the former Wisconsin RTI Center, or they've been implementing interventions or materials that maybe their building has purchased for them, but again, not all buildings have maybe had access to, which leaves some holes and some gaps for our kids. So really, we really want to work hard within student services to have that high quality, systematic, evidence-based interventions for students. We really want to make sure that we have lots of data, that we're not just going based on 1 or 2 days of observation, that we're really thinking hard about what students need within the tiers. Specifically related to RTI, we do have requirements for students that might be referred for a special education evaluation for emotional behavioral disabilities, that we would need to have really good core instruction in that social and behavioral skills, but also do require progress monitoring and delivery of intervention in that area of social, emotional, and behavioral skills to consider whether or not they would qualify under emotional behavioral disabilities. And again, that's an area where I'd really like to see some improvement for our students. We had a district social emotional learning curriculum committee that examined 4 really excellent evidence-based resources that target a variety of tiers, whether that would be all 3 tiers or maybe some depending on the curricular resource. We had a great committee consisting of 5 teachers, 11 student service staff, so those would be our school counselors, our school social workers, our school psychologists. We had 6 principals, secondary and elementary. We had 2 district curriculum coordinators, 4 BLISS staff, and 1 tech integration specialist from the tech department. Prior to our committee, student service and cabinet had been guiding the use of school-based mental health funds. So we've been able to do some projects such as have the Calm app for another school year. We've been able to add a counselor from Rawhide, Amanda. We've been able to hire 2 AmeriCorps service providers who've targeted student well-being and belonging. We've been able to provide more training for our staff who work with students within special education to decrease seclusion and restraint. And then we've also been able to provide some professional development and restorative practices for our student service group. Beginning in November, Student Services then studied a survey done last year looking at all the wide range of SEL curricular resources in the district, and it was all over the board. In general, Second Step was a go-to resource for folks, but again, not all buildings had been given that curricular resource, so there were lots of other ideas, everything ranging from teachers pay teachers to, again, implementing Second Step. Over the next few months, we examined programs that provide Tier 1, 2, and 3 resources and really focused on DPI curriculum and alignment tools that they provide. In February and March, we met with vendors from various companies to look at their materials and obtain quotes. And then recommendations for those highest quality programs were brought to Cabinet and Educational Services. And they also joined some various sales calls to learn a bit more about the intricacies of each program. And then finally in April, we had a committee that met together to look at the top 4 curriculum resources, and committee members were nominated by their principals, or some directly signed up for the committee, or some were asked to be on the committee just given their background. And the committee used a rubric to evaluate the programs that was based on meeting social emotional learning competencies, our CASEL competencies, the provision of tiers 2 and 3, such as did the resource have that? What did the professional development requirements look like? What did the prep time look like for implementers? What kind of technology requirements were needed? What was the cost? And what kinds of data or assessment and progress monitoring tools might be included? So now we're excited to bring that work to the board. The district committee unanimously recommended the adoption of a specific program called Character Strong. So Character Strong is a research-backed curriculum and training program that increases belonging, well-being, and engagement for students and staff as the primary targets. Provides instruction for every student, and it works on teaching character traits, and it integrates with implementation of positive behavior interventions and supports by training all staff in the program. Research that is coming out nowadays is really showing that schools that choose to implement both PBIS, or those positive behavior interventions and supports, along with instruction on things like character traits or social emotional skills, have the best outcomes as to those that only maybe pick one. At the elementary level, character traits include instruction on traits such as respect, responsibility, gratitude, empathy, perseverance, honesty, cooperation, courage, and creativity. At the middle school level, instruction really focuses on respect, interpersonal problem solving, emotional regulation, friendship, conflict resolution, and empathy. Bullying prevention is especially targeted, and outcomes with the instruction are to increase well-being, engagement, and belonging, similar to a lot of the work we've been doing in the district. At the high school level, curriculum has a grade level focus. So this includes belonging, freshman year, well-being as a sophomore, engagement, especially in your academics as a junior, and leadership in 12th as you graduate and leave us. This would, of course, not replace all of our hard work in ACP and Zello, but could be integrated and fused with that to help increase our student outcomes. As I mentioned, Character Strong is aligned with our Wisconsin social emotional competencies, as well as the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, so that CASEL domains, and also is in alignment with our American School Counselor Association mindsets, behaviors, and alignment. Character Strong is web-based, and it provides teachers and student service staff with quality instructional plans with minimal prep time, which is really important right now in education. The Tier 2 Character Strong approach trains student service staff in a 5-step problem-solving process, using a precision tool to help identify the hypothesized root cause for why the student's needs exist to help inform the selection of an effective intervention for the student. And then progress monitoring tools and fidelity rubrics are provided to help evaluate the student's response to intervention, so that RTI, and staff adherence to the core intervention components. Within tiers 2 and 3, small group and individual instruction really focuses on students who need those additional skill instructional opportunities. Generally, they focus on coping, which would be those internalizing emotions, regulation, which would be externalizing emotions, relationships, which are social skills, and self-management, which are executive functioning skills, which I say often are those fancy, like thinking about your thinking, study skills, and personal organization. So through root cause analysis, again, that 5-step problem-solving process teams determine if the student really requires some direct skill instruction, or if perhaps they have some motivational needs. Students that need skill instruction would be provided group sessions with their student service professional to really build those precise skills. Small group instruction is typically provided in 10-week intervals for 30 minutes. Sessions and information are sent home to the family and shared with the classroom teacher so that everyone can work on generalization of skills and really encouraging that student. Students who have motivational needs, so maybe they have a lot of the skills, they just aren't showing them yet, are supported through a selection of 6 evidence-based targeted supports. And then our students at Tier 3, generally those are 3 to 5% of our students in every school that have that greatest need for increases in their behavior, social emotional skills, and just overall school well-being. They're most at risk for our negative life outcomes. And without those interventions, our staff can feel really stuck, or they can fall into patterns of being more reactionary than we would hope they would be, or they might spend significant amounts of time coming up with really specific plans for students when we could provide them a tool that might really help them be more targeted for those kids. Among students who need those top Tier 3 interventions, Needs that we frequently see are concerns related to anxiety, depression, trauma, and executive functional skills. We have noticed in our classrooms that extreme behaviors that are unsafe really highly disrupt our learning environments and can negatively impact other children, and they require a response from trained professionals, and they deserve a tool to use for that. Our Tier 3 Character Strong solution provides the personalized intervention mapping, progress monitoring tools, again, similar to Tier 2, and environmental support, so thinking through what might you do different in the classroom for that student, and ongoing monthly professional development, or PD, for staff. Within the program, progress monitoring tools have automated graphing to show that RTI, or that response to intervention, in real time, and help look at the function of behaviors. So that's helping the staff understand why might a student be displaying that behavior, and how can we find better ways for them to get their needs met. So again, Character Strong provides support in all 3 tiers, has additional benefits that include consultation with buildings to ensure quality implementation, consultation and coaching for the implementation, especially of Tier 3 plans, which can of course be most custom and tricky, ideas for school assemblies to really help with that PBIS piece, a problem-solving blueprint for helping with chronic absenteeism, and restorative practices such as peer mediation. There's also a searchable video library that provides supplemental lessons or supports for discussions. Everyone likes videos and visuals. And again, there's a professional development that would be provided to all staff. That Tier 1, or just that core universal instruction, is about a 3-hour training that all staff would be able to access. And Tier 2 and 3 would be a custom learning day for our student service staff. And again, there's also on-demand professional development and webinars, and they're always adding to that catalog for staff to access on different topics. Sorry about that, I skipped that slide. For our district to be able to look for a resource like this, certainly the number of buildings and tiers and professional development, requires some funding. Our district has acquired funds from the DPI Get Kids Ahead, or GKA initiative, as well as the school-based mental health grant program. So the district has approximately $107,000 from the Get Kids Ahead initiative, and $147,000 allocated for curriculum or resources for the school-based mental health grant program. And we will also get an additional allocation for the school-based mental health grant next year during the 24-25 school year. These funds must be sent to provide social, emotional, and mental health services for our students and different resources that target those outcomes. An allowable expense for those grants would be curriculum such as SEL for Tiers 1, 2, and 3, using evidence-based improvement strategies, or any additional applications and resources. So in total, those grants and funds could purchase us 5 years of Character Strong subscription and the professional development that would go along with that, which is just a little over $250,000 for the board to take a look at. So in closing, overall, those are tools that we're definitely excited about to bring to the board, helping support our student behavior, mental health needs that I know all of you have asked about and wonder about. And we also have continued outside providers who are interested in things like donations, such as our donation this year for Rawhide Supports. So overall, the motion for this memo is to approve the purchase of our curricular resource as presented. And I'm happy to add a little bit extra information. Chrissy Hall had really wanted to come tonight, but she's been really ill. So she asked that I read some information that she took some time to write up, which is super nice of her. She said, as a former teacher at Washington School and now the current principal at Bannock, I strongly believe it's imperative that we implement a district-wide social-emotional learning curriculum. SEL serves as a foundational element to learning. Students require these essential social-emotional skills to effectively focus on academics as they learn to manage emotions, build positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Unfortunately, our current approach lacks cohesion. Each school building and even each classroom has implemented its own content. At Bannock School, various resources such as lessons from Teachers Paid Teachers and random acts of kindness website have been utilized. At Washington School, Second Step is utilized. The disparity between these two schools is an example of the fragmented approach throughout the district. Just as we prioritize defined curricula for ELA and math, SEL demands a comprehensive framework aligned with educational standards and designed to progress over time in a spiraling manner. So she means returning to how is our curriculum doing. Only through a district-wide commitment to SEL can we ensure that every student receives the necessary support to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Christy said, as a member of the district SEL committee, we unanimously chose Character Strong. She said she's dedicated significant time reviewing the content. I see this as an important opportunity to implement a district-wide curriculum. The program, along with the tiered interventions and progress monitoring, is based on scientific research and aligns with the Wisconsin SEL competencies and CASEL domains. Chrissy wrote, I urge the board to strongly consider adopting Character Strong as our district-wide SEL curriculum. Doing so will provide our educators with the universal tools necessary to significantly enhance the cohesion and effectiveness of our district's SEL efforts. Its comprehensive approach makes it an invaluable resource for supporting the social, emotional, and academic growth of our students. So she wrote, please invest in our students' well-being and success by implementing this impactful program across our district. Thank you for your consideration. Chrissy Hall, Bannock School Principal.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. So with that, questions or comments for Jenny?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Dennis?
Question followed by question.
Sounds good.
The $250,000, is some of that material, is it material that we will own, or after 5 years do we have to start from scratch again? Is it all consumables?
It's some of both. So the content they're updating at times, so to log into the online platform, students or teachers or student service members access that online. So there's that annual subscription in case they've added, say, a whole new unit on additional bullying lessons or additional units on setting goals for post-secondary. So there is that kind of live aspect like a lot of businesses have where you log online. To answer your other questions, some of the consumable information we'd be able to download. For example, the progress monitoring graphs, they download right away into an Excel spreadsheet. And so I would have staff upload that to our student analysis program like EduClimber, where that would always be in that student's record to see, oh, they had this small group, it really focused on relational skills, and here was their graph, here was the documentation of their attendance, and that could be uploaded right into that. Some of the content or learning that the students get themselves also is downloaded, and teachers can print that to have, or the students can have that in their small groups, such as with their counselor.
What I was getting at, for the next 5 years, in today's dollars, will it be comparable cost, or will it be significantly less because we've already had the program?
Yeah, that was my question too.
Yeah,
Dennis.
that's a great question, Dennis. I think it would probably look less because we wouldn't need some of the training that we would put into the quote. I would think over time we'd be able to build in some of that training, so we wouldn't need that large amount for the training to go across. Same with the tiers 2 and 3. That training costs I would think would go away. The items that would remain would be those subscription fees and that online access, which is still a cost per building. It's hard because in a big district they want you to charge per building.
And my second is a clarification, a friendly clarification I'm asking for. I'm very supportive of the curriculum, as I said in committee. I really think it's important to have a district-wide curriculum. I think it's important to have this specific curriculum, and I believe in the goals and hopefully what it will achieve. My question is on the process, just some clarification, because in the adoptions that I'm familiar with, you'll have, pretty much 3/4 of a year, you'll start out by informing either the board or the building that you're going through an adoption. You'll set a schedule of what the adoption looks like. You may have some piloting. You'll have ongoing meetings with stakeholders where you get feedback. And when I hear that you met in April, I'm just wondering, is that the tip of the iceberg of everything else that happened, or was it more of a compressed experience than what I'm familiar with?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Robbie. I would say some of both. I think some of it would be compressed due to some of the funds I inherited were already on a timeline, and the plan for that wasn't set. So I had to jump in and get some plans set for all of you and for all of our students on a much quicker timeline than I would have liked. In general, though, your experience, I would say, would be spot on. In the future, like Mrs. Hall talked about, I would definitely want it to be much more robust, but certainly don't want us to lose out on any funding.
Listen to, so I can encapsulate that. What I hear you saying is that when you took over, we had some funds, there wasn't a plan for it. We had to really put things together, accelerate what we would ordinarily do, and do it in a different way, maybe not the perfect way, but the way to get it done and still be able to use those funds, otherwise we lose the funds. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, I think you summarized
Thanks
it
for the
perfect.
clarification.
Thank you.
Two follow-ups to what Dennis just said. One, so it'll be grant money, but then recurring expense, right? Two,
After 5.
If you chose to, after
right,
5 years,
right.
yeah, we'd come back together.
If we kept going, it would end up being,
Yep.
this- so that.
You got it.
Two, when I heard mention the committee makeup, I noticed there were no parents mentioned. Was that a reason why no parents? And lastly, is there a reason, or has there been any of this brought to the board for any consideration prior to right now?
So no parents were included in that. I don't have a specific reason for that. And then, no, this would be the first time the board has gotten to take a look at this other than the committee meeting last week.
I had
Yeah,
just a
Chief?
couple
Sure.
comments. From the report that you just made and what I read in here, it does seem like there was a real need for this when you, Chrissy Hall talked about the fragmentation from one school to another. So I appreciate that somebody saw that, maybe you saw that, and that we really needed to do something. And I was also impressed by the fact that, Chrissy's recommendation plus said that it was unanimously recommended by the people who looked at it. Is there a backlog of information about this program? Like, where has it been? Do they have an idea how it's working? Things like that you can let us know.
Such as information on the specific curricular resource or on the...
Well, if other school districts have made use of this, various stages in the 5-year plan, do we know what their feelings are?
Sure. Yeah, I've seen it implemented across other states. So the originators come out of a different state. It didn't come out of Wisconsin. But I'm certainly starting to hear about it in other districts. I belong to a work group of other directors that work in like larger districts, because of course we have a wide variety of sizes in our state. And there have been some other districts that have used the elementary curriculum, so that purposeful people, and have had really good things to say about it. And then beyond that, I'd say that there's some research information on the website, things like that. We took a look at through the committee, and certainly I did before even bringing things to the committee. Same with the DPI.
And they've all been positive?
Yeah.
Any districts in our area, like central Wisconsin?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pope.
To comment a little bit on that, Mr. Pope, I know there's, like all online reviews and that kind of thing, there's positives and negatives. There's definitely multiple districts out there that have, I think, liked the program. There's also several that have said, we are not seeing the benefit, and they decided to discontinue the service. I read went to the Character Strong website, and there's about, I don't know how many pages, it was a really long, drawn-out study with a bibliography about 40 pages, no, not that many, but 4 or 5 pages long. Read the whole thing, and it was on their own website, and they posted it, and then you read it and go, at the end, they're like, oh, this is sort of inconclusive, we're not sure what we think it is. There's lots of emerging evidence, but they didn't list any of the actual evidence in their own study that they posted. So, for what it's worth on that. It's one of those, I read it and go, because in my personal life, I got to read studies like this sort of thing all the time, and I read it and went, That wasn't the most ringing endorsement I was looking for there, but there are, I'm sure, people that really enjoy what it is, so go ahead.
And to Jim's point, is there, and I'm sure you've already thought of this because you're so brilliant, but will you have some kind of like a pre-testing and post-testing by the year so that when it comes back to the board, we can say, hey, this is what it really was valuable, or this isn't worth another $250,000.
That was also on my list for questions, so
What
you're,
is-
you're reading
I
my
love-
mind.
What
I
is
love
the
that
measurement of
question.
success? What are
Yeah.
we looking at is what do you expect?
Yeah, I'm your statistics lady. I love your question. Several different things and many multiple points. I certainly wouldn't want to just have one. In general, districts that are able to implement that integrated approach of both positive behavior interventions and supports, so that PBIS and the social emotional learning curriculum, generally see higher academic outcomes, especially that engagement piece. Students are feeling more belonging, that they're able to access supports that they need within the school day. So I would hope to see that in our attendance improvements as well as our like standardized test scores. I would also want to see attendance increase. More specifically, though, I would like to see decreases in major and minor behavioral incidences in schools and out of schools and lunch detentions, and more of those reactive plans for students, with many more students have planned tier 2 or 3 or a combo of that rather than waiting for them to fail and then providing more corrective actions after the fact. So I'd,
Board
go
with
ahead.
those data points that you just listed them and they're excellent.
Yes.
But could you provide us early on in this process that these are the things we're going to look at the end?
These are the outcomes we're looking to achieve,
everything
and
you
then we
mentioned
would love the
are all good ones,
updates.
I think.
Yeah, and I have a few more. In October, I presented on some of the school disciplines, so we have some quite a bit of baseline on in schools, out of schools, expulsions, abeyances, what those like I think I did top 10 specific behaviors of trouble, like is it aggression, is it AODA, is it classroom misconduct, some of those kinds of things. So we can continue to monitor that through that same presentation. And certainly if a different time frame is more interesting to the board than October, that could always be done, or it could be done more often. And we can always break that down by disaggregated groups, whether that's male, female, disability, no disability, racial categories, things like that, or grade level building, things like that. Our Skyward, our student information system, helps you break down those things because, of course, we track those behavioral outcomes like the discipline. Our EduClimber, which helps with those student analytics and more the student, like the positive outcomes, would be where we could track the number of students in Tier 2, number of students in Tier 3, and certainly our counselors and school social workers would keep those really close records of 10-week small groups or those individualized plans, so we'd be able to give you a count or percentage or both of students accessing that. I also hadn't mentioned very much, of course, special education could access all of these resources, especially to target children that have functional, social, emotional, behavioral goals, or students that have specific disabilities, that have impairments in these areas and need really intensive programming to close some of their gaps and help them do well in our schools. And then beyond that, our district has had significant disproportionality in the area of emotional behavioral disabilities, meaning that too many students, especially in certain racial categories, have been identified in that. So I would want to see us not significantly disproportionate over the years.
Mr. Rick?
So, well, first of all, thank you
Yeah, you're
for
welcome.
bringing this to us. And for me, this is kind of what we've been doing for the last number of months, which is identifying areas of need and bringing in the professionals who work for us from around the district to review the materials that we're looking to be providing. I think all of us have recognized the increasing issues and concerns with kids dealing with social emotional issues, with behavioral outbreaks. I think it's just very apparent the impact that has, not only on that child's learning, but on the learning of everyone around them. So I really appreciate you pulling this together, pulling that professional group taking a look at what it was we wanted, taking a look what was available, and really working together to then review programs and come up with a recommendation for us. It's what we've done with English. It's what we've done with math. It's you know, and again, I unfortunately, maybe this one was a bit rushed. So my question is, what, you know, moving forward with this, because I think our district, you know, bottom line, it's essential, especially with kids who really are struggling, to have that ongoing communication and connection with family, and to be able to work together to best support the child. And so how do you see kind of rolling this out, providing information to families, and then what are those communication intersects that you think that again, being able to move more uniformly within our district, but then more purposefully over time? How do you see that helping that partnership with parents?
Yeah, that's huge, and I think those who are able to attend the Ed Services Committee looked specifically at that YRBS, and we can see that that's a connection we need to improve. And I know there's been some different topics like targeting more breakfast eating, less screen time between midnight and 5 in the morning, you know, just all these things that really contribute to well-being and being present for high quality instruction throughout your school day. And this would be part of that. So in programs that I've managed in other districts, it's been effective to send letters, communication, however the district, you know, seesaw all these different platforms we're lucky to have nowadays to let families know what new programs we have, what the purpose is, who will consume those, what learning targets they are, and what they're rooted in. So I would like to see that go out before the start of the school year. And then typically for guidance and counseling programs, when there's units of study, which like our Character Strong, I could see being done maybe per character trait or maybe 2 of them, depending on what we feel is enough information but not too many papers coming home. Say you decided to do that for every 2 units, so every other month or every month on each character trait or target, that you could send home letters explaining that, what we'll be working on, who would be delivering that, and then in case there's someone who wouldn't be interested, that they could sign forms for an opt-out that could go through their building administration. And then also Character Strong has lots of family newsletters and hands out that make that easier for our educators to be really clear in what are we teaching. Again, to reduce that burden on our student service or, you know, classroom staff, and even our administration, who are ultimately in charge of that building level communication. I think if families really look to each building to know what's going on in their kids' lives.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I spent a good deal of time looking at the curriculum and reviewing the videos and the classroom instruction, and I talked to staff in our district with very varied experiences, diametrically opposed perspectives, and similar to Chrissy Hall, they shared with me that there are extreme behaviors in the classroom. I know this. I have children in the district. That universal and a curriculum would provide us a way to ensure that we're using common language, that we're able to build upon it from primary to secondary, and also to kind of reset expectations in terms of roles and responsibilities, right, in each of the buildings. And so Barb and I have been advocating and feel very strongly on, you know, the topics of mental health and bullying prevention. We've talked about how do we continue to serve that special ed population that we see continue to increase year over year. And so, you know, I didn't find anything that concerned me when I looked at the curriculum and the character traits. And these are all things that I hope that, I mean, we could all probably as a board, right, and benefit from. The one thing I want to just get clarity from, and you kind of touched on it, is the parent opt-out. So I just want to ensure that if there are parents that for whatever reason do not feel comfortable, what is that opt-out process?
Yeah, so as I explained, I would like to see it go out by units with letters. And that could be either electronic or paper, whatever families feel that they would like to respond in best.
Okay.
That could come back to the classroom teacher or their building administrator, just to letting them know that they're looking to opt out. It could be by unit, or perhaps they just have decided as a family it's the whole school year. So they would have some choice in what they would like to do. And certainly if you felt like certain units were really important, but others were not, say you really want the bullying prevention, but maybe you didn't want the character traits, things like that, that would be the pattern for that, similar to our human growth and development opt-out. And just making it transparent by sending those home right from the school, with the kids home, or again, echoing that through our different communication systems, whether that's the newsletters, our Skyward has different alerts that you can send out, or some of our teachers use different apps like Seesaw or Dojo, things like that.
And can you help me understand, because I'm not familiar with what we do if someone opts out of human growth and development, where are those students going during that instruction time?
Yeah, it would kind of depend on their age. Those are mostly targeted at the younger level, but for this specifically, it could be anywhere from a high school student all the way down to a really little student. So it would need to be a good plan for their age and development and their own conditions. So I would say that would come toward the parent talking with the administrator and the classroom teacher to make sure there's something meaningful for them to do. Most likely it would be supplementary instruction to work on some of those core subjects. At the high school level, certainly it would be a good opportunity to work on if they have volunteer hours, something to do at Career Center, something they're working on. Maybe they're just doing the ACP part, so maybe they're filling out their FAFSA, things like that. Or maybe they're a teaching assistant, or they just have homework or studying to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments, questions? Alex?
Go ahead.
I have spent a substantial amount of time looking at the curriculum as well, and I've shared with administration, so this comes as no surprise. This curriculum has some language in it that I'm very uncomfortable with, and I've shared this with you as well. One of the lines from the video that teaches the teachers how to teach it says, "What's said in the circle stays in the circle." And I've talked to administration a lot, and there was litigation about this as well, and the school lost, and the amount of $40,000. Because the danger is when we are teaching, and this was in a 4K and kinder classroom, I understand and respect that you have to, what you're sharing with each other, you don't want the students to be talking about outside. However, I think it lays, even if it's unintentional, and it lays the groundwork for instance, someone sharing something and students not feeling safe to talk to someone outside of the building or with their parents. Or then we are mandatory reporters as well, and we've talked about that as well, that we're still mandatory reporting, but then we've told the students that we're not going to share what's talked about in the circle. So we're not caveating that, we're not saying anything like that. And to Lils, what you say is the gospel. My son said that I promised to do something. I didn't promise, I said I would try to do something, but in his mind that was a promise. So now we're setting these little kids up for trust problems because we're saying what happens in the circle stays in the circle. I don't feel comfortable with the language and the secretiveness that it's establishing within this. I've read 4K through 10th grade. I've looked at all of them. I have no problem, and our teachers deserve to have something universal. Our teachers deserve to have something that they don't need to prep. Our teachers deserve to have some sort of tiered approach where absolutely, our teachers deserve that. Our teachers do not deserve to have potential litigation against them. Our students do not deserve to feel that they can't, or that something that they're sharing will be secret, but now it's not a secret, and now we have trust issues. I am not comfortable with the language, and until that language is removed, I can't support it.
Sorry, G, and then Jim.
Okay. First of all, it's a 5-year commitment. So as far as data accumulated at the end of 5 years, when we decide if we should want to do this again, there'd be a ton of data.
Yes.
But I would also encourage, data is great. It's one, we need data. But I'm a person, I feel like anecdotal evidence is important. So I would urge all along through the process, and I think you will, talk to the people doing the implementing. Do they see it working? If I want to know, are our kids okay after COVID? I go talk to a third grade teacher and she'll tell me right away, unequivocally, yes, they're there, or we need to do this, this, and this. So the people involved in implementing the program, I think, we can get lost in data and say we're doing better, we're doing worse, or whatever. But I would urge, and I think you will, to keep in contact with people implementing it, saying, I think it's working. I see kids tying into it, leaning into it, or this is too hard to implement, or it's things like that. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I think you will, but I want to value the anecdotal comments as much as the evidence that we get in the end of this 5-year period.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's fair, Mr. Pope. Yeah, and the survey that was done last year before I was asked to come on board here, they asked a wide variety of questions, so certainly we could even recast that. It asked some yes, no's, some rankings, some how's it going, what are you using, how do you feel about it, and it certainly could be improved upon. But yeah, I value that as well, and certainly sometimes you look at large data sets and can feel worried or overwhelmed, but there's also really value in looking at case studies. Our district really has some students who need some of those most significant needs, come from different reasons for that need as well. And so sometimes you forget, you look so far, behind the scenes. But there are kids who are making significant progress in our schools.
I'm sorry, but maybe before Jim, did you have anything to address regarding the circle time?
Sure. Yeah, I was able to meet with Mr. Summers on Friday, which I'm thankful for, and I appreciate everyone's opinions. Certainly I'm just bringing information to the board to be able to decide what you want to do best for our district, what you feel is best, what you don't feel is best, those kinds of things. But just bringing that to you as a specialist in the area and hoping for you to digest that and make good decisions. So certainly I agree that the intention, like you spoke to, could sound skewed if maybe you look at narrow sections of it. The intention really isn't to have anything secretive or not have students feel trusted. If anything, I'd say it would be the opposite. It would be really to make sure that if students share something, maybe that happened to them on the bus or something like that, that no one would gossip about them or make rumors or bully them for sharing or being an open person. No one has to share, of course, in any kind of discussion in classes in general. So I would hope that through our training we can really make sure we're doing a really good job of explaining that, because certainly those kinds of questions would really come down to ethics, which I feel really strongly about, and I think all of our teachers do, that we're here to provide high quality experiences for our students, that no one's seeking to do anything opposite of that, such as harm or anything unkind to our children or families. So certainly I think we can do a good job of delivering good instruction on the implementation of Character Strong, as well as that ongoing fidelity and observation to make sure that that's going well, especially with our counseling and social workers being leaders in that domain in every building.
So Alex, I would just share, I think, as Jenny alluded to, I think we can address that particular segment of lessons at the primary level have created some questions and maybe some discomfort in our district. And though we can't create our own professional development resources, we certainly have the ability to customize at least the message that our trainers are sharing with staff when they talk about that particular lesson component. And I think it would be critical for us to just be able to share with them, we want to ensure that staff understand the intent of that message, knowing that it could potentially be misconstrued. We do have staff ethics policy 3210 that would address, if staff were asking children to keep secrets about what was taught or learned in their classroom, clearly would be a direct violation, and we would have mechanisms in place to be able to address that.
And so I spoke to a staff member about that particular statement, because at first, right, when you read it, it is alarming. This particular staff member reminded me that I have a child who was in a small group setting where this child shared something that was embarrassing that happened in the classroom. And so that prompt was used. So, so in that particular setting, that kind of reset, like, okay, I get it. So to your point, like, I think it's alarming if the person that's facilitating the conversation is not ethical. And then to your point, there are mechanisms in place to address that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was going to say that I think it's, first of all, I appreciate your,
Yes.
your comment, your perspective.
Yes.
And I think there are people in the community who share that perspective and concern. What I hear you say is that you're going to make extreme effort to be sure that teachers know that they are still mandatory reporters.
Yep.
Teachers understand that we don't keep secret from parents. Teachers understand that there's a difference between kids, let's not be talking on the bus or on the playground, to I'm never going to share anything at all that was said here. That is not ever a possibility. So I think people in the community, some people in the community really need to know that we are going to emphasize that at each and every interval along the way. And then if there are, just like if there are aberrations of that, then it's an administrative concern. And Corey has said over and over and over again, if those issues happen, we will address them as they come up. So I understand when I first heard about it, I had red flags too, but then as I kind of look at it from another perspective, it's like, no, that's not the intent. But sometimes I think people fear that there's a door opening and that people will, maybe be rogue. And where that doesn't happen is making sure that they all hear that over and over again and assuring the public that that is not our intent. And yes, we can modify it. It's a very good curriculum. There's a couple things people aren't comfortable with. We modify it so that we can all say, yes, this is where we're at.
Without question.
Yes.
Jim?
One, I appreciate you bringing the idea of the HGD style opt-out into this, because the mechanism of this program is such that there's things like self-esteem, personal responsibility, positive interpersonal skills, healthy relationships, bullying, refrain from making inappropriate remarks. All those are listed literally in 118.019 Administrative Code regarding human growth and development. And by law, we have to inform parents of their rights and give them that opt-out. One of my other concerns with that, though, is investigating this, hours and hours investigating this and reviewing this in the last week. A lot of the lessons in the older kids, particularly, and even probably starting in 3rd or 4th grade, starts with open-ended questions and student-led discussion, really. How do you square that circle of allowing a parent to review content that is impromptu? Because how do you say, when a certain protected topic comes up that falls under this, and you say, well, I've allowed my kid to be in there, but now all of a sudden you're going off on a tangent or a topic that technically you cannot talk about unless you've got the parent allowed to look at the material. How do you square that when the material technically is just a framework, but the actual content can become very controversial, whether it be religion, sex, gender, I don't care, but all those things could definitely come up when someone says, well, I don't feel safe or I don't feel respected, and maybe we have to respect parents in that regard. One, what is that going to look like in your opt-out? Two, to also clarify, the law here on Administrative Code 81 or 8.012 Section E mandates that we provide guidance and counseling. It does not mandate that it's compulsory participation. I have a problem a little bit with automatic universally K through 6. We are automatically enrolling kids. We're changing the school day. We're basically a forced elective when we implement this in the grade schools automatically.
So I think we address. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think we address the latter part of what you just referenced via the opt-out.
Okay.
Right. So we're required to provide but we provide the option for, and you're 100% correct in terms of statutory language in 118.019. There is an awful lot of crossover between topics touched on in Character Strong and those that are aligned within health standards, without question. So in an effort to err on the side of caution, I think addressing this particular implementation with a model similar to what we've used with human growth and development makes perfect sense, and it actually makes me feel very comfortable sitting in this chair. Jim, to your point around, how do you guarantee that some of those open-ended questions may not drift in the direction of a topic that, would create discomfort for some families absent the ability to be able to review that content prior? I can't give you a 100% guarantee as much as I would love to. I can't do that. I think in the process of training staff and upskilling them in this implementation, what we need to be intentional about is saying, stay focused on the lesson objectives and the content. So when the conversation starts to go in that direction, teachers will need to be given guidance to go back to the lesson outcomes and objectives.
With the ability to review and parental review, I know with Zello that we currently have, Zello does have an available parent portal that we can look, as a parent, you can log in and look at that. Did we offer that yet?
I don't know if
I don't
Character
think we
Strong has
have.
the ability, Jenny, I'm not
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah, there's that
Family
family
portal.
links, I think
However, it's
is,
only good for 30 days. So unless there's some other caveat, right now the language on the website is only 30 days that families have access to it.
And what I've seen on that, it was very limited access. It was very general. It'd be nice that maybe they put an update of the topics that they're talking about, or, in there, so it's a little bit easier. I mean, if we're gonna spend $250,000, then they want you to, spend hard-earned tax dollars, whether they were grants or not. Does it not make sense that we say, hey, if you want us to spend this money with you, you need to provide access for parents for true, I mean, we've talked about transparency tonight. That's true transparency right there. So can we do that?
yeah, certainly if the Family Links website isn't long enough or good enough, we can make our own tab on that curricular resource on the website, I would think, to have whatever information we'd want. I would think coming right off the website would be the best because it's right from that platform. So I think that's something we can just make sure is very clear in our purchase order on how that looks. And if for some reason it has a expiration date, that would surprise me as like a paying customer. But we would want to make sure families have access to all of that online.
Definitely, yes. Okay. G, I'm sorry.
Well, certainly, we're going to have some training for our teachers to lead discussions, and as you said, some of them are open-ended questions, and you want to sit down and you want to discuss with a group of youngsters, minors, topics that are important to them and so forth, and kids can come up with stuff that, as you said, would lead down to the road if we don't want to go there. And I would trust after the training that our people, our faculty, whether it be classroom teachers or specialists or anything like that, after undergoing training here, would be able to recognize those things and steer things back to a more helpful, acceptable way of talking about things. But then in the end, as you said, you can't completely guarantee. I can't guarantee what my kids are going to talk about walking down the hallway with another kid. I can't guarantee what they're going to talk about after school or at lunch. We can't legislate every second of what happens. We can train our teachers to guide, which they're partly trained to do anyway, to guide the discussion in the way that they want it to do. I mean, I've discussed things with a group of kids, and you can tell, hey, it's getting off. Come on back. You have ways to bring the kids back. You're a veteran teacher. You've been trained to do this, and I personally, I trust that our people will do this. Now, you mentioned there was a lawsuit, Okay, there was a lawsuit. I think this program is absolutely worth doing this. I mean, I talked to your teacher. I talk to teachers all the time. They tell me, I spend 70% of my time just getting the kids ready to learn. well, here we go. We have a program that is addressing this, and there are some aspects make you feel uncomfortable, things like that. I'm willing to give our teachers the benefit of the doubt that they're going to do a great job. We're going to train them up, and they are the people that can guide these discussions too. You know, something may come out, you know, that you weren't warned about, because kids say things. But I think our teachers can bring it back, and I'm putting my money on that.
Meg
They
or
need
Dennis?
to.
Yeah, and that's their job.
Legally, they have to.
So, for me, I feel like what we're doing with this program is providing our teachers with the tools, with more tools, with better ways of addressing matters that are coming in our classroom every day. And one of your comments in the presentation was just our staff at this point saying, you know, things are coming up and we're all individually trying to figure out how to address it. And so for me, that's exactly what this program is designed to do. It's designed to allow our professionals to address the issues within the classroom. I mean, I have 4 kids. You know, I was relieved when my kids were in the classroom learning from those professionals about topics that they were also learning, you know, from their peers on the playground and on the bus and on the in this world today on the internet. And to the extent that our staff can receive this training to be able to support our kids in the ways that they're acting out, to try to better inform and better support. You know, it was part of our referendum. I mean, the importance of providing this support to kids, and I believe the best way is, Dennis, you've said it, Jen, you've said it, I think we've all said it, is trusting our educators and providing them with the professional development that will give them the tools so that as a district we can do a better job. So I'm strongly supportive of it.
To Jim and G's point, you made a good point too, but not the same point. There's a very wise person, Art Linklater, who said that kids will say the darndest thing, and no matter how much we plan and we think we have everything knitted up and tight and all ready to go, sometimes they go off in a mind of their own. And I can tell you that the educators I worked with, when kids go off in a tangent to an uncomfortable place, those educators are also pretty uncomfortable, the majority of them. And yet, I can never say that there will never be a rogue teacher that doesn't go off and put themselves and our kids in an uncomfortable, inappropriate. On the other hand, I didn't work with those people. I worked with 99.9% of educators who were aware of the issue, the parents who had your concerns and the community members, and they really, they saw the red flags and they were able, just like G was saying, bring them back, bring them back, bring them back. So I'm not saying it would never happen because you get yourself in trouble there, but the majority of our teachers, like you said, trust them, and we have to trust them. And when you send your kids to school, you are given, you're given local control, parental control. You have to trust, otherwise it would be very uncomfortable sending them to school, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of touch base on your topic, I do think that having universal curriculum at the district level helps so that hopefully there's no going rogue. But, you know, right now in each individual building at the district level, we really don't know the topics that are happening.
And I agree that having a wide, consistent plan building to building makes sense. My concern is that it's, whether we say it's an opt-out or not, when you say this is, you know, this is the time we're setting aside every day for it, that becomes more coerced or compulsory when you are working it into your day at the level one, at the tier one level. I mean, obviously the tier 2 and tier 3 are, you can't do those without getting parental or guardian consent on those. My issue is making it not universal in content, universal in participation, and making it, that's the change in the day that we're like, that's counter to the law, and it's, we've had a history sometimes with state mandates in our district where they say this is required, and then we have content and such that's by law you can't require. And so then parents feel like, well, this is this universal, we have to do this, and it becomes a confusing thing where they think, oh, I can't opt out of this, it's required. And so that's my confusion, my issue with this is that that's how it gets perceived as a parent. You know, for instance, there's like FACS class, and I think we changed that now in the academic guide, but in 8th grade, we were saying that it was required when it technically wasn't, and yet parents didn't really realize that they had the opportunity to say no to that, and that wasn't made clear. And then when you look at the academic guide, it says this is required. They sit back and go, wait a minute now. That's my issue when you say it's universal, not across all the buildings. My problem is it becomes compulsory, and like we talked earlier, almost is like, well, everyone else is doing it, so I guess maybe I have to. That's my point on that. It isn't the idea of making it broad, and it isn't my idea that, oh, I don't care about the mental health side. I do. And I worry about SEL in general. When we, Meg earlier brought up the concept of lawsuits going on regarding Act 20. There's nationwide lawsuits on how SEL is getting implemented because it goes into how kids are getting convinced or coerced or persuaded to a particular point of view, one way or the other. It almost becomes religious beliefs that you're trying to instill on kids. In those instances, my worry is that, and because I had that worry, I asked last week when I met with some of my concerns, where is our policy on this? We have none. It bothered me that we are pushing all this and we have no policy in the district on this.
On neutrality in the classroom.
Yeah, on that and on social emotional learning in general. To me, feel like we're putting the cart in front of the horse. We're saying let's say yes to all this, and we don't have a policy in place to address any of that.
Actually, this is already happening in the school day, pre-K through 12. So it wouldn't be additional. It's just that we're asking for a curriculum that's consistent district-wide. So there really wouldn't be a change.
We've had universal all this time?
Not universal, but we've had
time.
Yes, time in the day.
Well, and there are also policies, but the board in making a decision, like we'll be making tonight, is setting guidance for the district. In doing our strategic plan, which was an initial 5-year strategic plan and an revised additional 5-year plan, the board unanimously, I believe, approved a focus on social emotional learning in our district as part of our curriculum, as part of our pillars, as part of that long-range strategic plan. So, there are many ways that a board establishes direction. I mean, we just approved a math curriculum. We're not revising a policy to indicate that. It's an action that the board has taken. So, that's something as well. This board over and over, or previous boards, have focused on the importance of supporting social emotional learning for our kids, including in our most recent referendum. And so I think, again, the board is the policy-making body, but we make policy when we set our budget. So again, pretty much whatever we do is setting policy for the district, is setting our priorities, and is setting guidance for the superintendent and everyone working for her in what we believe as a board is a priority within our school district. And then there are certain areas where there are opportunities for parents to opt out. And if there's a way that we can do a better job of, clarity, I recognize parents are busy. That's something to take a look at. I know that was looked at pretty extensively when we just redid the human growth and development.
2 years ago.
So hopefully we'll be able to continue to ensure, that parents do understand that ability to opt out.
So I feel like we've had a really robust discussion and everyone has had an opportunity to share. Just to recap, there were two concerns, one on the parent opt-out. Well, there was a couple concerns that were risen to the top. So we're going to be very clear on the parent opt-out, to your point, Jenny. The language regarding the circle time, as PD, we will be very clear on the recommendation, the requirement, the expectation of that language and what that means. I feel like we've spent a good deal of time talking about this. So at this time, because there's a lot of varied, I think, perspectives, can we have a roll call vote, please, Carlin?
We have to make a motion.
Oh, sorry, a
A
motion.
second first.
Make a motion to support this.
Second,
Okay, and so we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
A motion
I just
to
want to make sure we
approve
have
The
a clear
purchase
motion.
of character-strong curriculum.
Of character-strong curricular resources as presented.
Okay.
That's Ted's motion.
Yeah, nice try.
Job's in danger.
Oh, my job might be. All right.
Recall.
Okay.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Shader,
Aye.
Mr. Summers,
No.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Mr. Robbie,
Yes.
Ms. Erler,
Aye.
Mr. Lepak,
No.
Ms. Bushman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so thank you for that really good discussion.
Thank you for all your time.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
Really nice job.
Thank you.
Jenny, could you disconnect?
Yes. Okay, we are moving into agenda item 12, Technology Services 3-Year Library Media Plan.
I'd like to call Dr. Brian Casey forward. He is going to give us a little information on the 3-year library plan that we have to do every 3 years.
Good evening. Fairly straightforward matter. I hope to give you some background on why we're in front of you today with the plan. Go through it at a high level to give you a sense about what it is, and hopefully answer any questions before you consider approving the plan. So it is statutorily required that every district have a library media plan on file with the DPI. And we follow the process given to us by DPI, which has changed throughout the years. Currently, it is called Future Ready. We did have several library media specialists that participated in training from the DPI to be able to do this process. And then the process took over a year for the team to collaborate and go through the gears. That's how it's presented in a visual. And really have the time to consider what was best for the whole district, come up with a plan in draft form, present it to administration for feedback, go back, make revisions, and we have the final product before you today. So I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. So if there are things that you think that you would like more information on in more detail, by all means ask, and I'll attempt to answer those as best as possible. So it starts off with a mission statement. I'm not going to get into that. Chris, maybe if you just want to, I don't know if you're controlling that or.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay. Whoop.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So okay, I know.
Not again.
Presentation tonight.
So
PTSD, right?
it is called Future Ready, and then the process the DPI came up with is called Future Ready Librarians. So the librarians that participated in the DPI training, that's what it's called, Future Ready Librarians. So the idea that we're preparing our students for the information age, all of the changes that are coming, and the changing role of the library. There are 8 gears to this plan. And that visual represents the idea that all the gears are interdependent. They need each other to function and to make the whole thing work. So there's that first slide there too also refers to the digital learning plan. That was a previous rendition of technology planning and library planning that the DPI came up with prior to Future Ready. I think that's their attempt to sort of use what was best left over from the digital learning plan and incorporate it into Future Ready. So, want to move forward?
I'll try.
Okay.
One.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so the most important gear is curriculum instruction and assessment, that we do actually deliver instruction to students in the libraries about how to use library resources, and things like digital citizenship, basic coding, STEM, you name it. I mean, our librarians are doing a lot of curriculum when they work with students. So that was the first gear. And out of that discussion for each of these gears, it was a reflective process. So they identified areas that were challenges. And with the challenges, there isn't necessarily a solution proposed. Some things are just outstanding challenges. It was important to acknowledge those with the understanding that's something we have to continue working on. And it also looked at our strengths. What are we doing well in the district? And the library media specialist highlighted, for example, digital citizenship, which we are doing a very good job, especially at the elementary level. Okay, Chris, next one. Personalized professional learning, that is how do librarians help their own growth and also the growth of staff. They're currently doing that very well, especially when it comes to things like STEM and STEAM. They are really becoming building level experts in supporting that mission. But also, they identified several areas that, we could do better on in terms of, and the biggest challenge is time. Everyone in the district would probably unanimously say if we had more time. So that's another example of a challenge that isn't easily resolved. Our infrastructure is very good. The district has invested very heavily in upgrading technology infrastructure. Things like bandwidth, Wi-Fi are all very good. Access to computers, very good. Every student has access to a Chromebook. And then I think they identified there too as challenges, funding, the upgrades, which is an ongoing process. Even though I think we are doing an excellent job with that, it doesn't end. A device that you put in someone's hands 3 or 4 years ago will probably need to be replaced. Even though we have iPads and various robots in the libraries, those get outdated. So the challenge for us is how do we keep funding and how do we keep planning to replace equipment? Okay, Chris, if you move on. Budget and resources. We do an excellent job with that. And in Wisconsin, we're unique in the sense that we have access to what are called common school funds, which is an excellent resource, provides a lot of support for our libraries. As far as print resources go, it covers almost all of that. A lot of the technology they use, but it doesn't cover everything. Because it's dedicated towards libraries, there are very strict rules about how it can be spent. One of the challenges identified through this process is how do you address furnishings and storage and other things which common school funds may not be used to purchase. So our librarians are looking at how we want to redesign a learning space in a school. And all of our schools are different. Some are larger, some are smaller. But the challenge is out there, how do you provide, for example, new shelving? Your shelving is getting old, it's not functioning, or storage for robots or other equipment that you want to have in the library. So that is one of the things that will be a continual topic of discussion, and we hope to do some creative problem solving with that. Community partnerships, we do an excellent job. We have a number of librarians that function in various organizations, library boards. WIMTA is a statewide organization that supports library media, working with, for example, the folks that are running the Century STEM grant were examples of how we're doing very well with that. Data and privacy, that's something I take a lot of pride in saying that we do an excellent job in our district on that. Not that it's like we're done, we're never done, but I think we figured out a lot of things in terms of supporting that from staff down to students, protecting students, and also how library media specialists communicate that in their lessons to students. The one last, prior to that was collaborative leadership. Our librarians are trying to figure out how to work best with schools. That was a really interesting and exciting topic that came out of this work that we had. How do they integrate with grade level teams at schools? How do they integrate and work with other groups such as the Century STEM grant that is functioning right now? So again, there's a lot of opportunity there, and we don't really have a lot of concrete solutions. But I think it's very positive that there's a desire to affect that in a way that we don't really know yet. Okay, and then the last one, use of space and time, which really refers largely to the library itself. What's the best use of that resource? And that is the biggest challenge. We're limited by the physical space provided in the school, and we're also limited by the funding that if you wanted to have some more creative seating or upgraded furniture or storage, we're very limited in terms of accessing common school funds. Out of this work, an action plan was created. It's very straightforward, very direct. The most important thing is that our librarians are agreeing to commit to writing new curriculum. It needs to be updated, and this is a commitment from the district and from our library media staff to do that work and make sure it meets the needs of today's learners, what we're teaching in libraries. And that's really a very high-level view. I didn't cover everything, nor should I. And at this point, I would open it up if you have any questions or things that I maybe didn't explain that you want more information on.
G?
Brian?
Yeah.
Do we have a librarian at every school? A full librarian at every school?
Yes, we do. Assigned to every school has a licensed library media specialist. They're not all 100% FTE. At the elementary level, they're 0.5 FTE.
So every elementary has a half-time librarian?
Minimum, yes.
Do they have a person in the library if the librarian is not there?
Yes. Yeah, every library has a library educational assistant. They have specialized roles in terms of managing collections, checkouts, helping with lessons, and that's their niche.
Other questions or comments? Okay, well then at this time we are looking for a motion to approve the revised 3-year library media plan as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also would like to acknowledge our library media specialists too, that the hard work that they put in on this was exceptional, and they'll be overjoyed to hear that you guys approved this and we can move on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 13 under general. We have the budget evaluation process with Chris.
Thank you, Jen. So we do have some updates to budget evaluation. They come up primarily at the end of this slideshow. So I'm going to go relatively quickly through these initial slides, as much of this is a repeat. But it gives a recap of sort of where we've been in the budget evaluation process beginning back in 22-23, when we just initially implemented and developed the budget review process to include both consistent monitoring of staffing as well as other associated budgetary items where we continue to look for cuts and efficiencies. That takes us up through spring of 23-24. We'll soon be adding a column as we forecast out what the next steps in this process are going to look like. Meg alluded to some of these in her questions at our April meeting. How do we start to bring others into the budget evaluation process, and what does that look like and sound like? And I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about that on the final slide of the presentation. Up to this point in the program evaluation process, we've completed the review of 25 of the 42 identified programs. They're all listed there now on their own slide versus sharing space on another slide as we had it laid out before. The list has just gotten too lengthy. We currently have 3 programs that are under review that we are collecting data on. So that is 4K community-based programming, so that would be at our community sites that we just approved contracts for this evening. Also looking at school-based 4K programming, and that would be at McDill and Kennedy right now. We will and are slated to run a section of 4K at Jefferson in the upcoming year, which we did not run this year because we had limited enrollment at that particular site. We're also looking at the child care program that we have in place out at Kennedy. In The staffing arena, we have up to this point looked at 236 positions that have been reviewed. 217 of those 236 have been filled as is. 10 of those positions are still currently frozen, and 9 of those, no change there, that have been decreased or eliminated. We did not add anything additional here to this grid or this graphic that you've seen over the last several months. I do just want to highlight here on this particular slide that we did talk about in April a cost savings that we've identified of approximately $514,171. That was made up of the 3 staff reductions that we made at elementary due to eliminating those sections because of decreased enrollment. We also made a 0.6 reduction at secondary, and we also made a reduction overload that we were providing a stipend compensation for staff members. That totaled $375,000, and we also had a reduction in the CISA 5 contract, which totaled $139,171. So that was a large cost savings. I think what we've identified now in the budget evaluation process is a need to start tracking this and create some, maybe an additional layer of accountability that we share not just as a cabinet team, which really there is where this work has primarily resided for the last 1.5 to 2 years, and how do we now fold in our broader leadership team? So how do we fold in building leaders, associate principals, coordinators when that's relevant? So really thinking about laying out some more specific goals connected to what we think we can gather in terms of efficiencies or cost savings in any given year. In other words, identifying some goals to say, we believe it's both realistic and attainable to identify an additional $1 million or $1.5 million in savings. We've made a nice step this year at identifying some savings, but now beginning to track those and then start to make some decisions about where does that savings go, right? And I think that brings us to the projected referendum impact in year 1 for 24-25. So the new revenue is listed over on the side. In year 1, we have the 8.7. It's actually 8.75, but we just worked with round figures here. So we went with 8.7 and the additional $2.1 million in revenue for the increase in per pupil allocation. That's the $325 per student. If we look over to the right-hand side and we look at new expenditures, how we will use those funds in year 1 in 24-25 is to address the $5.2 million deficit that currently exists. The $2.2 million that will be absorbed by the salary and benefits package that was approved by the board back in April. The $2 million approximately of increase in healthcare costs, the insurance premium cost increase. $900,000 of that $10.8 million in 24-25 will go to restore or recover our fund balance to get closer to that 20% recommendation that currently lives in policy. $400,000 is an approximate expenditure for the TSA benefit. Remember, that's the $1,500 up to $1,500 match, and then approximately $100,000 for the sick leave payout. That gets us to 10.8. That really captures sort of what we have forecasted out for year 1 and the impact that the referendum will have. So as we consider that and as we sort of, I guess, capture those what we can consider knowns at this point, we want to look forward to what does the ongoing work or what's the next layer of this process. And we really want to, again, establish attainable annual cost savings goals and include our broader leadership team in some of those discussions. So as a cabinet team, we look for efficiencies by decreasing staffing or decreasing sections. But in some cases, our leadership team maybe is having a different understanding of what's available as a result of the referendum passing, and there might be asks for additional positions or asks for an additional curricular resource. So we really want to keep them apprised of the goals that we have here as part of budget evaluation, and we also feel like we'd like to put some additional teeth in the goals that we've created for ourselves to say, is 1.5 million in the upcoming year attainable and realistic? And we can hold ourselves, both as a board and I think as a cabinet team and leadership team, accountable for that. So that concludes my update on the budget evaluation for this month, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
I got a question. What's the nature
Sure.
of the 10 frozen positions?
So those 10 frozen positions are, I have them all here. So we currently have a health EA, or assistant at Jefferson.
I'm not particularly interested in what they are. I know we had frozen positions before the referendum.
Mhm.
The referendum passed. why do we still have frozen positions?
Yep. So some of them are still frozen. So for instance, a couple of those that I would rattle off initially, there are still buildings that are making decisions about whether or not they need to fill that permanently. In other words, we may have filled a position now because we weren't able to fill it with a staff member. There may be just a sub filling in. And some buildings have said, I don't actually know if I need to fill this permanently in the upcoming year. So I'm comfortable holding before we would post and hire a permanent employee to fill that position.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Dennis?
First of all, thank you. Thanks for the report. And thank you to the administrative team for taking the budgeting so seriously. And the reason it's so important is because every time we can save money, we don't get to the point where we were 100 years ago, where we're cutting staff, cutting programs, and hurting our community, hurting our students, hurting our teaching staff. The other reason is that the more money that we can put into personnel as opposed to other things, the better we're able to keep our personnel, and that we are able to compensate them in a way that shows that we really value them. And we know that because of funding in the past, we've had some tough years of doing that. And now, I believe the board and administrative team is much more concerned about making growth in that area. And the only way we can make it happen is to find like $1.5 million, $100 million budget. $1.5 million is a lot of money, by the way. That's good money. However, on a $100 million budget, it's probably doable. And the only way it happens is if you create a goal, like you're saying, and you make it a focus. And I appreciate that you're doing it. I also appreciate everything you've done with it, and I'm certainly interested in knowing how you move forward. I don't think, I know I'm not, and I don't think the rest of the board is interested in slashing teachers, slashing programs. We're looking at finding ways that through, through attrition, through whatever means, that we find those and capture those. And as people are retiring, that we look at every position and say, can we do this differently? Can we do it the same? And I know you're doing that, and that's the key to moving forward, saving money without causing chaos and heartbreak in our district. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Can you go back a slide?
Sure.
The 400 for the TSA benefit and the 100 sick leave, those are, if that
Projected.
those are projected,
Those are
right?
projected.
So that
All
correct.
projected.
So so let's say for the TSA only 200 would be used, that other 200 would go into our fund balance, correct?
Correct, potentially. Yep, and we'd make decisions about where those efficiencies or where we gather those savings go back to.
Just a reminder that when we had board meetings on the dollars for the referendum, we indicated that those projections were those areas, those were talking points, but they weren't necessarily, we're not committed to each one of those. There's some flexibility there. We may find that we have a discussion with fund balance and we decide, you know what, we can do that differently, like other districts do. And maybe a little more leeway, or have more information on what the actual impact of not having exactly that amount. But those kinds of discussions will take place, and hopefully the board will have some direction.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, good clarification, Alex, you're right. Those are maximum liabilities, so we could certainly come in under.
Sure, Will?
I guess I'm curious now that you mentioned it. What are the positions that were frozen or eliminated?
So the positions that are currently, so the eliminated positions, the 9 that were eliminated, there was a reading teacher position that was eliminated, a .4 business ed teacher, a .6 math teacher. That was as a result of retirement. There was an sign language interpreter position that was eliminated because the student graduated and there was no longer that need. We reduced 3 sections at the elementary level. It was a first grade section at Roosevelt, a kindergarten section at Roosevelt, and a third grade section at Bannock due to decreased enrollment. We also reduced a testing center EA up at Smash and a regular ed EA position at McDill. So those are the eliminated positions. Frozen are a health ed EA assistant, a SPED EA position that was specific, another SPED EA student specific at Washington, another SPED EA position at Washington, communication specialist, EDI support for office specialist, regular ed EA, an ISS supervisor at Ben Franklin, and a SPED EA at both Ben Franklin and at Madison. So those are the 10 that were frozen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and
So, with the positions, so a position comes vacant, you guys assess it, you take a look at it, and it's pretty clear you're focused on that specific. The program review that you're doing, I'm assuming is way, way more complicated than that. And so just from and I don't even know if you can give us an answer, but ultimately the goal is that out of this really broad program evaluation that you've been doing, that there will come a time where you'll be able to kind of hone in on specific areas and potentially, without eliminating programs, that we want to keep, recognize that there may be some things that there isn't interest anymore, because clearly we're adding programs as kids' interests change, et cetera, but we don't always eliminate the stuff that's. So, do you have are we talking maybe within a year? You'll be able to, or maybe by next, the next time we're taking a look at our budget, we'll maybe have some more concrete thoughts about some of those savings, because I think that those are the areas where we may be able to see,
substantial
a good
savings,
portion of that $1.5 million.
Correct, if that's the goal that we develop. And I think there is, my goal would be, I believe I'm a planner, so I believe that by next winter, we can have completed the overall review of all of the 42 programs. We can provide a report out at that time. The motivation for this process, Dennis, I appreciate you publicly sharing, is not intended to slash programs or positions, right? It really is about identifying exactly what you said, Meg. Where are some areas within our offerings where we do have declining enrollment, where we do have opportunity to identify some efficiencies? And really, it has proven its ability to be able to do that because we do know where we can look. And we also do know where we can, again, fold in our broader leadership team to say, can we just think about this position differently? In other words, nobody's losing a job, but can we meet the same need and interest leveraging a different option? So I do believe that by next winter, hopefully we'll have completed, as I said, that overview of all 42. And then it's going to be about engaging other stakeholders, even beyond just our leadership team. So at that point, we're going to need input from teachers as well. They're boots on the ground, and they have an inside perspective that, quite frankly, I don't have just by collecting the data that I've been collecting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, moving on to then item B, future meetings, dates, and times. So for anyone that was not here during the organizational meeting, we are now meeting at 6 p.m. for all regular board meetings going forward. Our next one is on June 10th, 2024. We have our board retreat on June 24th. Tentative time, we did discuss at 5 to 7:15. We heard recommendations for perhaps longer, so we will look at that. Agenda is forthcoming. And then July 8th, 2024, we have a scheduled board meeting if we need it. All right, moving on to agenda item 14, closed session. Enter into closed session. This is considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data, specifically 19.85 paren 1 paren C, specifically consideration of employment recommendation and contract for the McDill Elementary Principal, the McKinley Elementary Principal, the Bannock Elementary Principal, and specifically consideration of administrators' salaries and contracts for 24-25. I am looking for a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 paren 1 paren C.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I think we need a roll.
We get 5 minutes?
Roll.
Oh.
Need a roll call for it.
Mr. Kowalski.
Can't even do this. Or yes, rather.
Gary.
Here,
Yes.
and yes.
Ms. Portson.
Yes.
Mr. Robbie.
Yes.
Mr. Shader.
Aye.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Mr. Lepak.
Yes.
Mr. Pope.
Yes.
And Ms. Bushman.
Yes. Thank you. It is 8:45. Can we come back at 8:50?
8:50? Jumping jacks.
Thank you.
Thank you.